in the next 5 to 10 years when Africa comes of age economically? Will Sierra Leone benefit from this? Will Sierra Leone's youth be at the vanguard of that development, that new millennium of change? This is considered to be the African millennium. Let nobody get it wrong. This is considered to be Africa's millennium. And we ought to take advantage of that. And if we're going to take advantage of that, then we have to empower the youth, the up-and-coming population right now. I want to go back to the topic. How do we harness the power and potential of Sierra Leone's youth? Having given this brief background to this conversation, I will start out by asking all of you to spend at least 3 minutes each to address this particular topic. Just as a brief, just give me an overview of what your perception, your perspective is to this particular topic. I will start with Mr. Milton Magai from the UK. How do we harness the power and potential of Sierra Leone's youth? Mr. Magai.
Right. Well, first of all, I see the youth as like a garden and society as the gardener. And it is true that a gardener that neglects his garden will live to regret it someday. To actually harness someone's power or potential, you actually need to have some information on them first of all. For example, what are their needs? What skill sets do they have? Where are they and where are they actually planning to go? You also need to educate, train, support, and inspire the youth to actually lead developments in their countries and communities. They should be given the skills they need to actually contribute positively to society. I was listening to Vicky earlier on your station, and she actually mentioned negative role models. Most of these youths grow up in Sierra Leone looking for positive role models to actually emulate. Unfortunately, we're not actually privileged enough to have so many role models in Sierra Leone. So they grow up learning these bad habits that the elders or people that have failed the country have actually learned in the past decades or so. The youths are not being listened to often. I think that's the problem. The statistics you just mentioned says it all. Even though the current government has actually said they've spent more money on education than any other previous government, the question is that the youths actually benefiting from all this. I think you're being a bit generous in your estimation about the percentage of youths that are unemployed in Sierra Leone. From my understanding, it goes as far as up to 70% of youths that are unemployed. We're also talking about 50% literacy rate and youths that are unskilled. We grow up thinking that the youths are the future leaders, but with damning statistics like that, the future for our youths is very bleak. Instead of them being leaders in the future, they might end up actually being burdens of the future. It is for this reason that I actually call on the government, people of Sierra Leone, NGOs, and other organizations who are very interested in improving the lives of the youths in Sierra Leone to work together collectively to actually give them the opportunities to realize their dreams. It is true that we have so many talented youths in Sierra Leone, but the problem is the lack of opportunity. In the West where we live, it's hardly to see an idle youth without any program or schemes to participate in, unless that individual wants to be lazy themselves. They do everything in their power to actually make sure that they would be able to empower the youths, because in the future, the youths will be dependent on to actually drive the economy or development in that country. So for now, that's what I would say, just to give others the chance to actually give their views.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Milton. That was a very great assessment and much appreciated. You actually placed your finger on two issues, which is lack of opportunities and also a lack of proper role models in our society. Mm-hmm. But like I say, this is a brief intro into your perception about the topic. So we'll go to another panelist, Ms. Saran Chabi, who's co-chair and manager of the Green, White, and Blue Commission. Ms. Saran Chabi, you yourself are a very young lady and very passionate about Sierra Leone. And even though, like you've indicated, you were not born there, but your Sierra Leonean parents, you consider yourself a proud Sierra Leonean. despite your U.S. background. Ms. Jabi, the topic is a really provocative topic. How do we harness the power and potential of Sierra Leone's youth? I mean, give us a perspective, not just from talking about what you hear about the youth in Sierra Leone, but about Sierra Leone's youth in the diaspora as well.
Sure, thank you. And like you were saying to Mr. Milton, he touched on, a couple of issues that, to me, I believe are at the core. We can have the intellectual answers such as education and poverty. Yes, those things are, major factors in harnessing, the youth and getting them to where they need to be successful. But one thing I really and truly believe is that we lack inspiration. Our youth lack inspiration. They lack those role models. They don't have anything to aspire to. When they look around their surroundings, they can't name a person who has gone from this to that. In rap music a lot you hear about, the transformation from being in the ghetto in the hood and rising to being a music mogul or whatever. But our youth in Sierra Leone, they don't have anybody to look up to. And yes, we can blame that on the war and we can blame that on various other issues, but we lack the inspiration. We need to ignite a spark within their hearts. I always tell people, especially young people like myself, that, often when we try to give back to Sierra Leone, we think the only way to give back to Sierra Leone is through nonprofit organizations or through some type of aid or helping, going back home and doing, one particular stint and saying, okay, I've done my part. But if we were to really be more patriotic to our people, we would try to reach out to the youth, go back to Sierra Leone in some way or another, some fashion. You don't have to build the greatest nonprofit organization to give back, but simply inspiring, going back home to Sierra Leone and making something of yourself in Sierra Leone. You are inspiring a young individual to look up to and say that I too can be that. I can tell you, growing up in the U.S., I consider myself Sierra Leonean. But it's just, the political correctness of it all. I'm an American born, but I'm Sierra Leonean, so I have to put my American, my American parts in there. But I really consider myself a Sierra Leonean first and foremost. But, that doesn't mean that that I don't acknowledge my American parts, because I do. But being a Sierra Leonean doesn't mean just being brought up in Sierra Leone or being born in Sierra Leone. I was inspired by people who went back to Sierra Leone, such as Vicky Remo, such as Geneva Cissé Sogbe, Miss Aminata Doumbouya, when they all went back, I guess, in around the 2007-2008 time. And, they were dubbed the cool kids, in Sierra Leone, who went back to Sierra Leone. And it was just so inspiring to see that these individuals who probably lived in the U.S. all their lives or born in the U.S. go back to Sierra Leone, make something of themselves, but yet still give back to the community. So I can tell you I was inspired by just seeing them, and I lived here in the States. Imagine what that did for children and the youth who were in Sierra Leone. So I truly feel that if we were to be more role models, look at ourselves, especially those of us who are more exposed and are educated. If we were to look at ourselves as role models for our Sierra Leone youth, I believe a lot of children, even youth, will be very inspired and somehow uplifted and want to do something for themselves, and not only for themselves, but for their country as well. So to me, after poverty, after education, and all those other factors, inspiration is key.
Okay. Great analysis and great points put forward. One of the things that you talked about is the fact that more Sierra Leoneans that have the means need to look at creating more opportunities for the youth in Sierra Leone. And this is not just a governmental issue; it is also a societal issue. It's an issue that each and every person that comes from that country has to take to heart. Whether through non-profit or through whatever means that they may be able to do it in a legitimate way, in a positive way. Now, we'll talk about those points in the next segment, along with what Milton said earlier. But in the meantime, let me go to Mr. Bokari Ansah and ask Mr. Ansah about his perception about the topic. How do we harness the power and potential of Sierra Leone's youth? Mr. Bokari Ansah, you are on the ground in Sierra Leone. You see this. You live this life. What is your perception about this?
Great topic indeed. And I believe very strongly that in the first place, we need to identify the potential of the young people of Sierra Leone. I can tell you that we have great potential. In fact, the young people of Sierra Leone are contributing greatly to the development of this country. One thing that is clear is that most often we look at the negative side, but then there are two sides to a coin. There are always the positive and the negative side. Now, I say often, if you look at the police force, for example, over 80% of police officers in Sierra Leone are young people. They are disciplined, they are trained, and they spend the night in the streets trying to keep the peace. Now, over 90% of the young people in the prisons and cells, over 90% of inmates in prisons and cells are young people. So you see that if we train and discipline them, they will be exactly. If we abandon them, they will definitely behave wrongly. So those ones who are trained to keep the peace in the army, in the band, in public places, they are delivering their best in their country. Those who will abandon are caught in the hard work that we live with every day and every night. So for me, I think we should concentrate on identifying the potential of the young people of Sierra Leone and make sure that we harness them. There is no one-size-fits-all, in addressing and responding to these issues. I think, we should address their issues on a case-by-case basis. When I say on a case-by-case basis, I am not saying take individuals. I am saying, address the situations based on their different localities. We have young people in many areas, for example. Their life is different. We have those in fishing communities. Their life is different. We have those who live in urban areas. Their life is different. So what we should do is identify their different potentials first, and then work towards harnessing them. There are so many ways we can actually look at this collectively. And I think it is not, a political issue alone. It cannot be a government issue alone. It is, a national issue, and I believe it affects all of us, whether you're here or you are out there. The most important thing to note is that Sierra Leone is one of the most beautiful places in the world. But because of the challenges that Sierra Leone is facing right now, you cannot come home, then you are also paying a price for the crisis that young people are going through right now. I think about young people very, very positively. And I live with the challenges that they are going through. I am a victim, myself. So I believe we should all work together and identify their individual potential and harness them. I want to basically stop here at a general introductory statement because, if I begin to go into the specifics, I want to go into employment,
right.
Underemployment, and the labor market. Then that takes another section of this whole program, because I believe, the reasons for the marketing